Great. Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m. and we are just going to wait a couple of minutes and allow people some time to log on and kind of get situated. I hope you all have your coffee or beverage of choice in front of you for a really great morning. Jay is going to put in the chat window if you are having any trouble with Chrome or accessing any of the sessions, there is some help available. So this is kind of a new platform for us that we're using. We've traditionally been using Zoom for most of our broadcasts and sessions together, but Boomset is a newer platform for us, and so we're not anticipating any problems. But hey, it's technology; you never know, right? All right.
One of the great features of Zoom is actually this ability to sort of stream content together. Zoom is great if you're having everyone in remote locations, but what we've got is a little different today. We've got multiple presenters who have to merge their content, and then it has to be distributed to a group of people.
Right.
With multiple tracks, and we've got some exhibitors today and some other exciting stuff. So we thought we'd give it a try.
People from all over the country are here today, so it's great.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, I think we'll begin. I've got first of all, I'd like to say welcome to all of our members, welcome to all of our sponsors, welcome to all of our speakers that are with us this morning. Thank you for joining us for SFAR's 2020 Member Appreciation Day and Expo. Of course, normally we would all be together live in the same place, but we are in a very, very interesting year, and we'll talk more about that later. And but we're so happy to be able to continue the tradition of doing Expo virtually. We have a great day planned for you folks. Over 300 members have signed up to join us today, and we're very excited about that. We have some great speakers and presenters that will bring you some great information and I think make your day a little bit brighter as well. I do want to thank all of our sponsors, which we'll be thanking them throughout the day, but I want to say a special thank you to Guarantee Rate, which is our premium or our premier sponsor. So thank you guys. It's always great. You guys have always been such great support for us at SFAR, and we very much appreciate it. And I know the members do as well. I also want to thank Genevieve, Emily, J. Pepper Martins, and the entire staff of SFAR for putting this together. You guys are the best. You've been the best through all of this. You have kept us going without fail, and we couldn't be doing our businesses, and we couldn't do any of this without you guys. So, and of course, a special thank you to Walt Bukowski, our amazing CEO, who has kept us all, kept the boat afloat, so to speak, and kept us all somewhat sane through all of this. So it has been a year of challenges, as you all know. It's a year of ups and downs. But we are very, very pleased this morning to bring our guest speaker, Alyssa Hellman, to you. I had the privilege of seeing Alyssa speak at Woman Up a couple of years ago, and she immediately caught my attention in terms of her style, her presentation. She is a down-to-earth person that connects with people through her storytelling and through her real-life experiences. Not your ordinary motivational speaker or trainer, which is probably what draws me to her the most. She began the real estate business and quickly moved into working with training new agents and experienced agents, and eventually started her own company. And she now works with people in a variety of industries, helping them tap into their own strengths. So before I introduce Alyssa, I'm just going to tell you guys to stick around right after. I'm going to go over the schedule for the day and talk about what's going to happen later on. Of special interest, be sure to grab your lunch and join us at 12:15 for a recap of this year and for info about what's ahead government affairs update, MLS update, an update from our CEO, Walt. And so don't miss that session. Anyway, without further ado, I would love to introduce Alyssa Hellman and have her take it away. It's so great to see you, Alyssa.
It's so good to see you, Mark. Thank you so much for that intro. Are you guys playing a video, or can I share my screen? Do we know?
It's all you. It's all you. Go for it.
I will go ahead and try and share my screen here.
Okay, mine's stopped, so you should be good now.
Okay.
And I see your screen sharing, and there we go.
All right. So just so that you guys know, if you have any questions, definitely drop it in the chat and the Q&A as we're going. But I cannot see that while I am presenting. So I'm kind of flying blind as for seeing you guys so that you can see the slides. But as Mark mentioned, one of the things that I think all of us have just fully embraced at this point is 2020 is not your average year. I think we're all failing miserably at our bingo cards. Every time we think something's not going to happen, something new and unexpected happens. And so one of the things that I've really focused on with all of our clients during this is how to navigate all of these uncertain times. And when Mark and Genevieve and the entire group approached me about coming and talking to you guys, I said, I'm sure you probably have a theme, but this is something that I really am beating this drum in terms of speaking to audiences about this year, because it's something that's so extremely important. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alyssa Hellman. I am a coach. I'm a trainer. I'm a mom. I'm a real estate agent. I'm an active real estate agent. I say that because that does not just mean that I have my license. I do actively sell and close houses as well. And I think that that's important. But in addition to all of these things, I'm a certified Clifton Strengths expert. And Clifton Strengths, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But it's a company within the company Gallup. And similar to something like a Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strengths is really all about getting to know what are you naturally good at. So we'll dive into that. But before we do, let's kind of look at a recap of 2019. So this might be how you have ended, or how you did end 2019. You're probably at this stage, if you flash back 12 months, planning for 2020, feeling really good about things. The market was humming. Many of us were outpacing our production from the year prior. Prices were appreciating. I mean, there were a lot of forces kind of working in our favor in real estate. And so all of us were, in large part, sitting pretty. We were all pretty happy. And frankly, this is how our business planning might have worked. We might have gone into 2020 or ended 2019 going into our business planning saying, hey, when we're planning through the lens of this year, our trajectory is about to go off the rails. Like, this is going to be great. 2020 is about to be my best year yet, right? Except that's the thing when you think about traditional business planning. So when you go through traditional business planning, here are three really big problems that I think exist in traditional business planning. The first is that it's data driven. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's very important to be data driven. Numbers tell us really important stories when we sometimes struggle to connect the dots. So don't ignore the data. But in traditional business planning, we rely almost exclusively on historical data, meaning what did we produce in production this past year? What was our revenue like this year? What were our profits like next year? And then we incrementally set out to grow that. And that's great if you're going to have a year that is very similar circumstances to the past year. But our margins get completely misprojected because, one, you're normally not in the same market. You're not in the same year. You're not in the same scenario. The second big problem with traditional business planning is it doesn't account for who you've become. Now, that sometimes some folks struggle with it. They say, I'm still Alyssa. What do you mean? The reality is sometimes you're much more experienced. You may have grown exponentially in that past year. You may have increased your price point. You may have had a ton of referrals and really built out a great referral network. But you also have to think about who have you become that may impact work? So when you're looking at it in that, through that context, you have to think about, okay, when COVID hit, I also became a homeschool mom, something I never would have predicted. Many of us became caretakers. Some of us maybe even became sick this year. So these are things that traditional business planning, it just simply cannot take any of these things into account. And then the last big problem that I have with traditional business planning is it leaves very little room to pivot. I have a good friend named Stephanie Lanier out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And one of her core values for her company is we pivot, we pray. And I've always loved that because it really embraces real estate, if you ask me. Every now and then we need to pivot. Every now and then maybe we need to pray a little bit that things work out. And I think that that is a huge issue with traditional business planning because it doesn't offer up a plan B. Unless 2020 went exactly how you thought it might, your business plan may have really gotten thrown off. And a lot of us struggle to make choices because we either stick completely to our plan or we completely disregard our plan when it comes to traditional business planning. There really isn't that happy medium when you're looking at it in a traditional sense. So let's talk a little bit about how 2020 went. You guys started the year maybe really excited. You had your best year yet in 2019, and then everything closed down, especially in California. You guys really were truly closed for some time, and it really probably impacted your livelihoods and your ability to do business. Climate change, weather had forced some real significant impacts in terms of people's homes, people's ability to transact, some people's livelihoods. And then lastly, obviously, the bubble. Nationally, everybody right now has fears of the bubble bursting. I can't directly speak to California, but selling here in North Carolina, our average price point has gone through the roof, and it's not necessarily just because of inventory. It's because people can afford larger mortgages. They can afford a higher price point when interest rates are a little bit lower. So it's really interesting when you think about the bubble that, economists have been forecasting that this bubble is going to burst, but the reality is prices simply can't appreciate like this forever. And, while we may have been forecasting some sort of decline, some outside factors like COVID, like climate change, like the election, maybe even, they may speed that up unintentionally. So before I completely depress you guys, it's not all bad, I promise, or at least it doesn't have to be. I have a different format for business planning that I think that you guys can use, not necessarily with me, but just for yourselves in terms of saying, okay, here's where I am, here's where I want to go. How do I connect the in-between, right? So don't worry, it isn't all bad. I'm not going to spend all morning depressing you guys and making it a really boring and uninspiring talk today. So to kind of paint the picture for you. So I'm about to give you an activity where you will see a bunch of numbers on your screen. And the numbers are all jumbled up and they go from 1 to 54. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next slide that has them broken down here. And what I want you guys to do is find them in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get to as many as you can. And I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do that. And the key here is I don't want you to just count to 54. I want you to truly find the numbers. And then we'll see how well you guys do. All right, everybody ready? Cool. I can't see you, so we're going to go anyway. All right, here we go. All right. How did you do? Awful, right? Some of you maybe didn't get past 1. Some of you only found 2 because it was the biggest number on the screen. And, it was probably pretty frustrating. For some of you, it might have even felt like you were pretty frazzled. when I do this activity with big groups, it's always fun. This is one thing that I miss when we do this virtually is I love looking at people's faces as they do it, because you can truly get to know people as they're doing this activity. Some of you might I put the numbers up on the screen, and maybe some of you were trying to figure out the strategy. You said, I know there's a trick to this. How am I going to get to the numbers? What is the strategy? What's the pattern here? And then others of you were saying, okay, I don't like activities. Why can't I have a partner? And when's happy hour? When do I get to actually talk to people? I would be one of those folks, by the way. But many of us just reacted differently. And why did we do that? We reacted differently because we're all different people. So I'm going to have you try it again, except I'm going to explain to you exactly how to do it. So this is how this works. So you actually follow a Z pattern. So the numbers, as I said, are 1 to 54, and they're all mixed up. But as you saw, there's quadrants. I'm going to have you follow that Z pattern so you can see those numbers. So you'll start in the upper right, the upper left-hand corner, and then go to the upper right, and then down to the lower left-hand corner, and then the lower right. And then you'll go back again. So everybody got that? I'm gonna open it up and let you guys try again, and we're gonna see if you do any better. All right? Here we go. All right. How'd you do? Any better? I don't even really have to ask the question or be able to see you guys, because I know that most likely you did better. And why did you do better? You did better because I explained how to do it. I gave you very clear, concise directions as for, hey, this is the pattern, this is what you're going to follow. And then some of you maybe did better than others, but more likely than not, you all did better than the first time you tried that. Sometimes all we need is the reassurance that we're following this quote unquote right path. It's our basic human emotion to want to feel like we're doing the right things. And in a world filled with unknowns, that's not always easy to see, right? In fact, that right pattern probably looks different for all of us. As I said, we all maybe did a little bit better. Some of us did a lot better. It all changes. But the one thing that I think all of you probably shared in terms of that is you all shared this ability to say to yourself, okay, now I know how to do this. Let me attack this task based on that plan, right? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you guys a few questions, and again, I can't see you right now, so just answer to yourselves, or think about maybe somebody that you know. So, how many of you just every time you get into an elevator or an airplane or grocery store, talk to people wherever you go? You can just raise your hand. I know I do. I'm constantly talking to people. My kids hate going places with me because they know I'm always going to find somebody that I need. It's a very good quality in real estate, by the way. And then how many of you maybe have a color-coded or somewhat other organized closet, like winter clothes are over here and summer clothes are in San Francisco? You guys just kind of always have all 4 seasons. So it's not always the same, or it's backwards. It's always cold in the winter when I go there, or in the summer when I go there. What about how many of you guys write down a list of things to do and stick to it, maybe even on the weekend? Yeah. So all of these things, the chances are that you said yes to all of them probably aren't pretty good. The reality is these are just natural, innate talents, and every one of us has them. Even the people that we think might not be very talented, they have talents. They just simply maybe haven't transformed those talents into strengths. So talents are simply a means to an end. It's something that doesn't take up a lot of energy for us. We're normally pretty happy doing it because we're good at it. We're just naturally very good at it. And we can think through things pretty easily. We end up just being okay. We're effective and efficient in terms of doing them. But the key and the reason why I bring this up is when you can learn how to seek and invent ways to apply those natural talents to your goals and tasks throughout the day, your ability to perform with excellence increases substantially. Actually, it increases exponentially. It's insane how much more productive and effective we can be when we really invest in those natural talents as opposed to simply working on improving our weaknesses. And helping to cultivate your strengths starts with your ability to identify, what are my natural talents? What am I just naturally really good at? So this is the entire theory behind Clifton's strengths. This man is I know it looks like Dick Cheney. It's not Dick Cheney. It's a man named Donald Clifton, or Don Clifton, and he is considered the father of strengths, the father of Clifton's strengths. And it all started with this one statement right here of said, what would happen when we think about what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them? And I think that's such an important and impactful statement, because think about every time something happens that's less than ideal, right? We constantly fixate on what somebody did wrong or what they should have done better or what we should have done better. When in reality, what if you said, what if I shifted my approach to do things that I'm really good at and spend more time doing those? A lot of the time when it comes to strengths, people will think about them in terms of like hiring an admin or an assistant and how can you usefully use your time. But it's so much more than that. It's about focusing on how you can truly design your environment where you double down on what you're really great at. So somebody that is naturally a relator, for instance, and they have really high social skills, those people should be able to have much more face time with prospective clients. Whereas somebody who's much more strategic might need to lean on their expertise behind the scenes and their market knowledge as opposed to that relationship stuff. So what are strengths versus talents? So talents are just kind of those natural, uninvested in things that you're born with. So my favorite example of this is Michael Jordan. So I'm a big sports fan. For those of you that are not sports fans, I do have examples that are not sports related, but I'm going to start with Michael Jordan. So those of you that are sports fans, you know that Michael Jordan is arguably one of the best basketball players of all time. Now, I know that that's a very controversial statement, so it's always good when I say this virtually as opposed to in front of a live audience. But Michael Jordan is, no one can really argue that he's at least one of the best basketball players of all time, if not the best. And how did he get that way? He has this natural athletic ability. He's incredibly coachable. He was born with certain skills. And then he invested in those skills. He spent hours upon hours practicing. He went to camps. He went to clinics. He played on teams, all sorts of things. And he developed that into an undeniable strength. But does anybody else remember what else Michael Jordan did? I did a workshop like this yesterday, and somebody was like, he did poker. And I'm like, that's not what I was referring to.
Can I answer this one? I think I know the answer to this one. Didn't he go play baseball for a couple of years? Is that right?
He did. And he also tried his hand at golf, if anybody really remembers that. He failed miserably at golf, but he did kind of decent at baseball. And the reason why I think that that's extremely important when you're looking at an example like this is with raw talent, uninvested in talent, just things you're born with, you can get okay. You can get pretty far. But when you invest in those raw talents, that's when you make it, the ability to succeed goes up exponentially. That's when it becomes a true strength. And so his raw innate talent of athletic ability and being coachable and time spent in golf or in baseball just didn't equate to a true strength because it wasn't the same investment as he had made with basketball. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Some other things that, some other examples that I think are useful for those of you guys that aren't sports fans. So my daughter is a big Harry Potter fan, so she always tells me to use the J.K. Rowling example of she has an innate talent and ability to connect with her audience and influence others easily. And one of the ways that she's really drawn that into a strength is she spent the time writing. And so she can connect through her written word. Oprah does this very well with her spoken word and her relatability. Nelson Mandela did this really well of inspired millions of people to see their dream through his perseverance. So I think there's tons of different examples of how you can make just an innate talent and a raw talent into a strength. But the important part that most of us miss is this investment part of, we say, hey, I'm just naturally really good at math, so I don't really have to focus on math growing up in school. Well, that's not true. If you focus on math, you can be like a math whiz, as opposed to, hey, this just kind of comes easily to me. So in terms of strengths, this is a list of, in Clifton Strengths, there are 34 of them. And there's 2 different reports that you can do if you take this assessment. The Clifton Strengths does what they call a top 5 assessment, and those are going to be kind of your gut reactions. Those are the things that more often than not, they're going to be how you naturally think, behave, feel, act. However, it does break it down to the full 34. So you have what they call your lesser strengths, not weaknesses, your lesser strengths, and your leading strengths, your domain strengths. So what they do is they break these into 4 domains or 4 categories. And basically it's broken down into your executing strengths. So most like achiever, belief, consistency, focus, all of those sorts of strengths all really draw back to your ability to execute a task, to complete a task. So when I say executing, that's a good way of thinking of it, of completion, not getting started on something, not doing something, but completing it, your ability to complete it. Influencing tasks are a really fun one. I lead with influencing strengths, or not tasks, strengths. I lead with influencing strengths, and it is your ability to create buy-in. It gets people really excited about what you're doing. It starts the ball rolling. It wins people over. It allows you to communicate in a way that is effective and people understand easily. Then there's relationship building. Relationship building is all about how you're interacting with others, getting people to trust you, getting people to relate to you, getting people to feel like you actually care about what they care about. And then strategic thinking is simply the strategy and the things for how you're breaking down problems, how you're going about your attack. And I think that the important reason why I like showing you guys this is, when it comes to your strengths, you normally don't have all of them in one category. Well, you definitely won't have all of them in one category if you do the full 34, but even with your top 5, you normally see it's across the board. And I think that that's really important because it's less about just individual strengths and more about the dynamics of how they begin to work together. So traditional thinking might say to us, let me identify and work on improving my weaknesses, while strengths-based approaches focuses much more on what you're already doing and what you're great at, and then building systems for the other stuff. So why does this all matter? So what allows a successful agent to thrive in uncertain times like 2020? And my answer, and again, this is just one lady's opinion, not everyone's opinion, but this one woman's opinion is it's a focus on their strengths. All these agents that are successful and thriving in these uncertain times, they're doubling down on what they know they're really great at. And that, for many of us, is called our value proposition. Especially in these times of great uncertainty, it's much more beneficial to focus on what you can achieve and do well with minimal effort and energies. And I'm going to say that again because I think that's an important point for all of us to absorb here. Especially in times of great uncertainty, it is much more beneficial for us to focus on things that we can do and achieve with our minimal effort and energies. And that doesn't mean, when I say minimal effort and energies, that you're mailing it in and you're not trying. What it actually means is that these aren't things that are sucking your energy every time you do them. You don't not look forward to doing them. You don't dread them. Because uncertainty just naturally uses up our energy, our time, our positive feelings. And so when you shift your focus to your strengths, you're able to utilize talents to better serve yourself when you need you the most. Does that make sense for everybody? I'm going to use the example of Mark this morning when we were just catching up, and I said, Mark, how have you been doing? Are you staying well? Or are you staying healthy? Which unfortunately is the question of the hour these days. And he said, I am doing well. I'm doing really well. I'm focused on, my mental health staying well as well. I think that is the key to what I'm saying right here. Uncertainty, the reason why our mental health is struggling right now is there's so much that's uncertain right now. And it's sucking our energy, it's sucking our time, it's sucking our ability. And so when you're doubling down on your strengths and focused on your strengths, you're able to do that with depleted energy. So what does a focus on strengths actually do statistically? So if you don't believe me, let's work on the numbers here. So somebody that focuses on strengths on a daily basis is 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life. And that goes both personally and professionally. And they're also 6 times as likely to be more engaged in their jobs than somebody who doesn't. So I believe that the key to personal and professional development is really to fully understand how do you apply your greatest talents and strengths to your everyday life. This requires you to pay attention to your lesser strengths as well. So in addition to these stats, people that focus on strengths tend to look forward to going to work because they're really enjoying the tasks that they're doing every day. They have more positive than negative interactions with other people. So not just their coworkers, not just their clients, but also in their families, at home, with their friends. They treat their customers better because they know that they're confident in what they're doing. It builds confidence when you're leaning on your strengths and working on things that you know you're good at. They tell their friends that they work for a great company, whether or not the company is, because they're happy at work. They're happy with what they're doing. They tend to achieve more on a daily basis, so they're more productive. And lastly, not only do they tend to be more positive and creative, but they also tend to be more innovative as a result, because they're looking for, how can I design my environment so I can do more with my strengths? So let's talk about how you guys utilize this. So instead of our traditional business planning, what if we did strengths-based planning? So strengths-based planning, obviously, is going to focus on your strengths. It's going to say, okay, I'm good at X, Y, Z. How can I incorporate more of that in my daily life and in my business life and less of everything else? It accounts for how you're going to react to the unknown. So one of the examples that I use for this is one of my leading strengths is consistency. Now, anybody that knows me knows I love a good routine. I wake up same time every morning. I make my bed. I make my coffee. And when uncertainty comes into my world and ruins my routine, I get frazzled. I get frustrated. I sometimes am not the nicest person to be around. It happens. But one of the things that I lack in, and one of my lesser strengths, is adaptability. So I'm not good at the day-to-day, hey, no, don't worry about it, we'll just do this instead. But those of you that know me might actually not know that about me. And the reason why is I have made a conscious effort to design my environment so that I can account for how I'm going to react to the unknown. So for instance, say that we were doing this event live. If I was flying to San Francisco, and my wife makes fun of me for this all the time. So if you are going to make fun of me for it too, it's okay. I'm used to it. So if I were flying to San Francisco, normally what I would do is I'd book my ticket to fly out there, and I'd have my confirmation. I'd be ready to go, right? Not exactly. What I do whenever I book a flight is I not only look at the flight that I'm booking, but I also look at what other flights are taking off within the hour, the next hour. Do I have to change airports? If I change airports, where do we think that I'm going to land, as opposed to where am I taking off from? Normally, I'm the person on the plane as we're taxiing to the gate to say, okay, we're going to this gate. I've got the map of the airport up on my phone so I can see what I'm going to pass on the way. I might also be able to pick out where I'm going to grab something to eat on the way. I know I'm crazy. I understand this. However, what I'm doing in that moment is I'm providing myself a consistent experience. I'm saying, hey, if I miss my flight, what are my other options? Or when I get off in this airport that I maybe haven't been in before, what am I going to run into? Now, can I do this in every single situation? No. Could I do this for 2020? Absolutely not. But on a daily basis, I can account for how I might react to the unknown. So if I miss my flight, I'm not saying, oh no, what am I going to do? I'm saying, okay, I'm shifting from plan A to plan B. I'm saying, okay, I'm not taking this flight. I've got to go and get to this gate. And so it's not really adapting. It's a consistent experience. It's just shifting plans. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. Also, along with that is it's minimizing unpredictable situations. So when you're focused and doubling down on your strengths, you're really keen on what you're tackling every single day. You tend to be a fairly consistent person because you've designed your environment for that. And lastly, it designs your environment, not your production. So the key is, yes, our production matters. Numbers matter. Undeniably. However, when you're designing your environment, you inevitably will be more productive. You inevitably will do more transactions because you are a much more efficient and effective being. And so oftentimes we'll spend so much time focusing on developing our weaknesses, which really only leads to mediocrity, versus developing our strengths, which can allow us to set ourselves apart from the pack. So how do you do this? This is the key for you guys. So if you weren't going to take a Clifton Strengths Assessment, and I'm going to show you guys how you can do that at the end here. But if you weren't going to do that, these are a few good places to start. So the first thing you have to be able to do is you have to know yourself. You have to know kind of what makes you tick. And a lot of the time, we're so focused on everybody else that we're not doing that inward looking. We're not getting to know, hey, how can I be my best self? And I always like the analogy that I use with my friend Zach Shabbat, who some of you may know. He always ends every phone conversation. Zach's been my best friend for probably 10 years at this point. And he ends every phone conversation we have with, so Alyssa, how can I help you? Which sounds kind of weird, right? Like you expect that when you're walking into maybe a retail store and somebody says, hey, how can I help you? And you always say the same thing, right? You either tell them exactly what you're looking for, or you say, oh, I'm just looking, thanks, so anyway. But I used to kind of shrug that off and say, oh, no, I'm good right now. And Zach one day said to me, you got to know exactly how someone can help you. And if you don't, you can't expect anyone to help you. And for me, that was such an impactful statement because I totally believe that now. I totally believe that if I don't know how to help myself, there's no way I can tell others how to help me, right? So the easiest way to get to know yourself, the first thing that you can do as you're looking at your strengths is pay attention to your daily tasks. So at the beginning of my talk, one of the things that I mentioned is, maybe you're a person that has a color-coded or very organized closet. Maybe you're a person that thrives off social interaction. Maybe you're a person that really loves getting into, the details of your spreadsheets and you're really systemized. These sorts of things can kind of give us hints as for what our strengths may be. You don't have to use the individual titles of Clifton Strengths or of Myers-Briggs or of any of these things. When you embrace all of those titles, then that's all it becomes. It just becomes a title. If you focus on your daily tasks, and it's not just the task either, by the way, it's what you're doing and how it makes you feel. So if I am spending time out with clients, talking to clients, and I'm loving it, and I just hate those back office computer days, probably not my strength to be in the back office working on the computer, right? These are the kind of hints that I think that are really beneficial for us. The second thing that you need to do once you've kind of paid attention to your daily tasks and how they make you feel as well as what you're doing is you need to spend more time in that happy zone and less time in that hustle zone. So we've kind of gotten into this weird, awful, in my opinion, hustle culture. And the hustle culture is just like, as long as you keep working, you'll do more. And yeah, that's probably true until you burn out and want to quit and you're over it. Yeah, no doubt. You 100% will achieve more if you do more, no question. But what if you're happier? Happier people are going to be people that I want to work with. I'm going to call you back as my real estate agent if you're happy and enjoyable to deal with. I'm not going to probably call you back in a hustle culture of, hey, I feel like I'm never your top priority because you're always going on to the next thing, right? So when you can spend more time in your happy zone doing tasks, that doesn't mean like, hey, I'm happy on the beach too. I'm happy on my boat too. But like, I can't spend all my time there. But what tasks can I do at work that I enjoy doing? I'm having fun doing. I don't mind doing. The third thing that I think is really important in terms of getting to know yourself is not being afraid to say no. So this not only goes back into less time in that hustle zone, but it's also once you begin to know what you're not really good at, stop doing it. Like, I'm not really good at math in my head, and I'm definitely not good at 4th and 5th grade math right now. So like when my kids need help with math, I don't help them. I ask my wife to help them because 1, it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't bring me joy. And 2, I'm probably wrong. So it's just not something that I thrive in. So that's an easy personal example, but it also comes to work. If you're having to take deals in areas that you don't really know or work with clients that you don't really jive with, that's not going to make you happy. You're not going to deliver for them. You're not going to do a good job. And then lastly, focus more on what you have and less on what you don't. So this goes back to doubling down on those strengths. So we've been told, society's told us, hey, if you just keep working at it, you can do anything you set your mind to, right? All of these like buzz lines and taglines that we've spent our lives listening to. And I don't disagree. If you work hard at it, you absolutely can probably achieve it. Are you going to be the best at it? Not a chance. Not a chance. And the reality isn't because you don't deserve to be the best at it or you haven't worked hard enough. But remember that going back to that formula I gave you, if you don't have raw talent and all you do is invest in like not really a ton of talent, it's just not going to equate to a large strength. Whereas if you have a lot of a raw talent and then you invest in it heavily, that strength number is going to be so much more high. But here's the good news. And I told you guys I wasn't going to be completely depressing. Your business plan is only yours. You have to give yourself a break because comparison is not a good thing. Comparison puts you in a bad mental state. Comparison puts you in a bad professional state, personal state. So you have to do the sort of planning that's working for you guys. So if you've been interested in anything I've said, hopefully you have. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't been able to monitor the chat as I go through. If you text strengths to 33777, that will give you 10% off your Clifton Strengths Assessment, which those reports you keep for life. You have those whether you decide to work with us or not work with us. But in addition to taking your assessment and getting your results, you'll also get a 30-minute discovery call with me where I'll work with you on your strengths and help you kind of set that foundation or lay that foundation as for how you can design your environment a little bit better for 2020.
Alyssa, it's Jay here.
Hi.
I'm wondering if I could quickly ask you a question.
Absolutely. I was going to stop sharing my screen. By the way, I'll put it in the chat here of what you just text here.
Okay.
777. But I was going to pull it down in case anybody had questions because I couldn't see you guys the whole time.
Sure. So now that you're not screen sharing, can you see the chat window now a little on the side?
I can.
Okay. Well, I'd like to ask a question quickly verbally. So I took the StrengthsFinder 2 test back in, it would have been 2008.
Okay.
And I got my signature themes. That's a long time ago for me. I mean, I was a different person essentially back then. I was a young idealist. Now I'm a jaded cynicist. But more seriously, I'm wondering if my themes have changed. I should retake the test again, probably, right?
It depends. So I always leave this as a matter of personal choice. And the reason why I say that is statistically what we find more often than not is Clifton Strengths has done assessments for people who have taken them 15 years apart, 5 years apart, a few months apart, and have gone through drastic changes in their life. And normally what they'll see is kind of some slight changes in the order. But we normally don't see like, hey, if this was your 34 ranked strength, now it's all of a sudden your number one. Normally what you're seeing is, hey, it's like my 30 now, what I tell everybody, and this kind of giving you guys a sneak peek of what a discovery call might include as well, is it's less about the individual strengths and much more about how the dynamics of how they all work together. So in different scenarios, somebody that leads with relator, for instance, which I do, if they have positivity as their number 2 strength and I have learner as my number 2 strength, my relator will appear in different situations than theirs will. So I hope that answers your question. I don't encourage anybody from taking another assessment. Some people just like to see, hey, did I change or can I answer the questions a little bit differently? But like most assessments, I think you guys will find, because it asks just kind of your gut reaction to things, oftentimes you just don't see a whole lot of fluctuation in what your strengths are.
Well, I'm looking forward to setting up an appointment with you, because I'd love to go through it again. I think I do want to take the test again, and then I'd like someone to actually walk me through it. So
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and I think it can really change how people approach their business a whole lot, and especially what we've seen, at least in 2020, as I indicated in our presentation, is the folks that have been dialed in on their strengths this year have been able to pivot in a way that folks that haven't, in large part. And that's not to say if you didn't take Clifton Strengths Finder before this year that you're not doing well. I'm sure you are. But this has been something that a lot of our clients will kind of default back to and say, hey, I'm using this as kind of my centering point to keep me grounded when I feel like, hey, I should just try whatever's going to work because my business is going off the rails right now.
Understood. So the chat window is open. I can see a few people have been chatting a little during the presentation, which is fantastic. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to, or she can actually see the chat window now. So
see the chat now. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have.
I'd just like to say that I'm now in my happy place. So
good.
I put on my happy glasses and I'm in my happy place. So
yes, I think it's a very important point. Stephen, how do I use this for Teams? Oh, this is a fun one. So with Teams, we actually do a strengths workshop normally. We recommend that everybody on the team go ahead and take the assessment individually. And we can set that up for the teams. And then we put together what we call a strengths grid for everybody, so that kind of at a glance, you can see not just what are my individual strengths. So Stephen, for instance, what are your strengths, but what are my strengths in relation to Alyssa's strengths and how do they work together? So like I said to Jay, it becomes less important about the individual strength and more important of the dynamics of how they all work together. So we come up with not just, again, your individuals, but what are the team's strengths? And then how can you leverage one another to really succeed in each task that you guys are tackling? And if you just shoot me an email, Stephen, I'd be happy to get you some info about that. It's just Alyssa, my name, at alyssahellman.com.
great. Anybody else have any questions for Alyssa? Like, don't let her go away without asking your questions.
Well, I guess I'll follow up with another one.
Sure.
If we wanted to bring you out to San Francisco to do a group assessment like that sometime next year, when things are sort of more, when travel's less not recommended, would you like to do those on site? You'll come right out?
Yeah, so we'll tend to do those on site, and it ends up being a really great group activity. And what we say to most people is, even if you were to not take your strengths assessment before you attended, oftentimes we'll have people that attend and then take their strengths assessment even after. I think you get more out of it if you take it before in advance, but you can even take it after, and we provide a workbook and you can kind of utilize it to continue that work. Stephen, yes, this is exactly all I utilize with my client. Well, not all, but it is the root of how we coach with all of our clients. And so, yes, the quick test that we use is that Clifton Strengths Assessment, where we take your top 5. The reason why we have people do the top 5 assessment as opposed to your full 34 is, so when you take this assessment, Jay can tell you if he's taken it a while back, it creates an account for you in the system, and it'll hold your results for life. And so if he were to be able to figure out what his password was last time he took it, that's probably the hardest part of the assessment.
I'm pretty fastidious about keeping a password vault. So while you were talking, and as soon as you mentioned it, I'm like, I have this. And so when I opened up Firefox, remembered all my usernames and passwords from a previous iteration. So I was able to log right back in, and I could see my results. It even let me pull the PDF report again.
And if you were somebody like Jay, or if you take the Clifton Strengths and just do the top 5 to start, you can always pay, and it'll upgrade you to the full 34. You don't have to take a full other assessment. Just a quick point on that. If you guys go today and you're like, which one should I take? The reason why I recommend starting with the top 5 is those are kind of your gut reaction. In more situations than not, that's going to be what leads your behavior, your thought process, your feelings, all of those sorts of things. Oftentimes when I give people the full 34 right up front, what ends up happening is they do what society does, is they immediately go to 34 and they say, oh, well, I suck at adaptability, so I'm never going to be able to be good at that. And it becomes exactly the opposite of what we want to do. So it's really easy to get lost in the bottom part of that report as opposed to focusing on the top. So I recommend starting with the top 5 and then kind of diving into your full 34 after that.
Cool.
Thanks, guys, so much. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. And, of course, if anybody has any other questions, I think Nina popped in my email as well as my websites down there so that you guys can provide or get some more information on how all of this works and ask any questions that you may have. I'm always around, happy to chat.
Alyssa, it is so great to see you. I just have to say, you just started the morning off really great for me personally, and I think for everybody on here. So thank you for that. And I want to encourage all of you, if you have the opportunity to see Alyssa in person at some point, do it, because I've never forgotten it. So and we will do our best to bring you back to San Francisco when we can travel again and have you live. In person, I mean. So
I would love that. I miss people.
Yeah, I know. I think most people on this would agree with you. So
yes, I would love that. Anytime, you all.
Great. Thanks again, and best to you and the family. And we'll see you hopefully at a conference next year sometime. All right. Well, that was great. That was a great way to start the morning, guys. Super happy that Alyssa was able to spend time with us. I do want to let you guys know that we have some amazing sessions today. If you navigate, you should play a little bit with the navigation buttons on the left-hand side of your boom set screen. The sessions button, I can't do that right now, but you can go to the sessions button and then see all the different sessions. If I do it, I end this session apparently. So yeah, we're all still learning a little bit about how to use this. So, and I think Jay, can you bring up the sessions?
I think I've got it displaying. It should be visible now. It looks like it is from my side. Can you see where it says schedule?
No, I can't.
I'm going to restart the screen share.
Okay.
And we'll see. There we go. How's that working? Better?
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, so we've got at 10:05, we've got session A is expanding your skill set and credentials with NAR designations. Session B, the 2020 ballot could change real estate forever. Yes, totally agree with that. We have some very, very tight races here in the city. And Jay Chang is going to give you guys an update of all that, and Mary Jung. And if you haven't gone out and voted yet, go out and vote. Don't forget to vote. So those are the first two sessions, 11:10. You've got the good, the bad, and the uncertain, a global real estate perspective. Session B is an update from the MLS and Tech Committee. I believe Jay and Jeannie are going to be doing that, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know.
And Jody will be there too.
And Jody, great. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So that's going to be, those will be two great sessions as well. At 12:15, I encourage you all to join the group as a whole. We will hear from, I'll have some comments, some video for you, take you guys through a little bit of what we did this year, what we're going to do for the rest of the year and into next year. We'll have an update from Jay for MLS and Tech. We'll have an update from Jay Chang and Mary Jung on the political scene. Walt Bukowski, our wonderful CEO, who I saw is in the audience there, he will be giving us an update as well. So lots of great stuff going on from 12:15 to 1. So grab your lunch and join us. And then at 1:15, our sponsors will be in the exhibitor showcase. Yes, we did get some very, very generous sponsorship for this year, as we always do for our events. But even when we're doing virtual events, our sponsors come to help us all out. And please do take some time and visit those sponsors. And then 1:50 will be the start of the next sessions. Session A, marketing and social media entrepreneur. Session B is discrimination and fair housing. Very, very hot topic right now. We're very proud at SFAR that a diversity committee has been started by some members, and we're super, super excited to see what comes out of that committee this year and next year. So 2:55, we've got buying and selling tenant-occupied properties in the age of COVID-19. Yes, another one of our challenges that we are facing. So that'll be great information. Session B, contingency removal, a roadmap to the SFAR purchase agreement. Hey, if you haven't sat in on some of these forms presentations, you actually, every time you do, you will get something out of it. I just have to say, just great information and always great presenters. I'm not sure. I think Dan might be doing. I'm not sure if Dan's doing that or, but whoever is presenting, maybe Neil. It's going to be great. So. And then 4 o'clock, we've got our second keynote, finishing 2020 strong with real estate legend Mike Ferry, who, if you guys don't know who Mike Ferry is, you should. He's been around for a long time, and he needs no introduction. So that'll be a great session. And then last but not least, at 4:45, grab your favorite beverage, and we have a message from a special guest, and we will toast and have a little happy hour together. So that's going to be today's schedule. I'm going to sign off at this point. Jay, right? Was there anything else we needed to mention? Oh, nope, I did want to mention two other things. I did want to mention a couple other quick things. Hey, feel free to chat in the chat window. I see, people did start doing that, and that's a great way for us all to connect and chat on the side when things are going on. So don't be afraid to use that and fly your flag in there. And I think that is all I want to say for now, except once again, thanks to Alyssa Hellman for joining us. Really one of the most genuine people I've met. So that's all I got.
I'm going to leave the session running, Mark, but you can disconnect if you want. I'm just going to leave the day's agenda up so people can see the schedule.
Cool.
We'll see you in a bit.
I'm going to go back into my happy zone now.
I love it.
See you guys in the sessions.